back to Cock Dice and another painting update from me. It's Ian. This week has been yet another bumper week for painting with, well, I call it 20 models, 20 things. Not all of them are models. Knocked out this week. You might notice a theme. It's pulp gaming yet again. As you may have seen from the channel in the last week or so, I've got really into Perilous Tales. I've been chatting on their Facebook group loads. Recording some videos, asking about rules queries and stuff as the game works through its beta. And there's a couple of scenarios I didn't really have models for, and so I basically hit Thingiverse to grab some 3D models that were floating around on there to fill out some of the scenarios, and this is what I've got up to. So I'll gaze a bit closer up and show you what I've been doing. So first of all, this week we've got a pack of wolves. These were 3D printed Thingiverse models. There's only 3 poses, but they seem to do the job quite nicely. I've done an atrocious paint job on these. My first attempt at these came out really, really cartoony, and I basically had to hit them with loads and loads and loads of washes, lots of Agrax Earthshade and Null Oil washes to try and temper down the overly bright tops and add some of the kind of markings down the rear of them. They'll do. They're pretty basic models. They're all right. I say these are nothing to write home about. There's a couple of scenarios that require 3 to 5 wolves to run with werewolves, or the Cthulhu-y Arctic wolf one. So they'll do. I say it's just some extra minions to run a table. Wolves are always kind of handy to have for loads of different kind of skirmish games, from Frostcave to any sort of pulp game. So I've got 7 of them. Why is there 7? Because that's how many I could fit on my build plate for my printer. It was as simple as that, really. And now for some kind of cartoony vibrantness. One of the scenarios in Perilous Tales is a Day of the Triffids type game, which requires a bunch of seed pods and some Triffids. I've searched for pretty much 2 weeks to try and find a Triffid model to absolutely no avail. That nobody seems to be selling or has available cheap STL files for Triffids. So I grabbed this model for I think it's called a Grick. It's from Dungeons and Dragons. Basically because I thought it would paint up quite nicely in a similar way to the seed pods I already had found. Some sort of alien plant on Thingiverse a couple of weeks ago when I first started looking at this. So yeah, again, a pretty simple paint job. They're not going to get used much. I just wanted to bash these through and get them out. Didn't really enjoy painting them, as you might tell from the kind of lack of effort that's gone into them. But they'll look fine in the battle report. So they're a quick, dirty job just to allow me to film that scenario, which will be coming over the next week or 2. Next up is this disgustingly tentacly space octopus thing. Absolutely no idea what I'm going to use this for. I saw the model. It actually comes in a set of 3 different poses. It just looked awesome. This is painted very similar to the way the guy had modelled and painted the digital version of it. I just think it was kind of awesome. Weird space squid. I think he called it a star vampire. I have no idea. I'd need to go and read some of my Cthulhu mythos. Again, it's a 3D printed model. I've just drilled a couple of holes in it to drop wire, to have an open wire here, and there's another pin in his foot just to get into the base. Didn't do much exciting basing on him because it didn't really seem like the model that wanted it. Basically lots of fleshy tones. Went through all the kind of flesh tones on the inside of the tentacles and the tongue bit. Went through kind of pink horror, screaming skull, pink horror, screamer pink type grey on the inner ones, and then I went for a browns, and then the whole thing's had multiple washes to get this transition back from the kind of lighter pink down this end up to the darker pink right at the top. So I'm quite impressed how this guy came out. It was more complex than I thought it was. I thought it would be, but he looks pretty cool and suitably eldritch and gribbly. And another model I decided just to paint for the hell of it, because I like the model. It was another final Thingiverse. This guy is obviously the Yellow King from the various Cthulhu mythos. I've gone with a kind of, it was a very bright yellow, but I've done lots and lots of washes to drab it down and get the transition through to the darkness at the bottom. Green tentacles as usual, but I've kind of faded them back into fleshy tones, and then flesh with more washes to make it kind of just generally gribbly and horrible. He hasn't really got a specific scenario, but to be fair, some sort of tentacle Cthulhu thing with a bunch of cultists is all you need. And I painted some cultists last week, though they're not yellow, they're brown, but it's close enough. So yeah, I'm sure he'll find his way onto the table for some sort of scenario somewhere in the not too distant future. And finally, 2 models that you didn't know you needed, but now absolutely have to have. I have Space Chimp and Space Cat. These are from Bombshell Miniatures patron for April. They should be appearing as STL files in his store fairly soon, and eventually they normally find their way onto being cast in resin eventually on his website. These are just adorable. There is a space dog as well, but I'm not a dog person, so I didn't bother painting him. So Space Chimp, I think I'm going to do something else with his eyes. I'm not particularly happy. Chimps obviously have brown eyes, and they don't really seem to have come out, so I need to find a way of giving him a bit of a highlight. Oh, I've messed his fingers up there. Oh, only things it shows on camera. But they are adorable little models. I'll get the cat out because this is my favourite. The cat is just lovely. Look at that little face. It's so gorgeous. Oh, there we go. Sorry. So relatively simple paint jobs. These are the first of my Galaxy Defenders, cosmonaut type 1950s retro pulp sci-fi models I'm working on next. That was a mouthful and a half. Butch Sullivan will be making his way into space to the year 3000 with a bunch of loyal and friendly companions and taking on gribbly monsters from across the universe. And I'm probably going to do that with a cat, because I like the cat model more than the monkey. Though the monkey's probably slightly more sensible to take on board a mission. They're great models. They're really, really simple. They basically painted in contrast paints with a couple of highlights. Contrast paints makes doing things like whites so much easier these days. It's literally the contrast white paint, and then Corax white, followed by whatever the brightest white is, ceramite white I think it is off the top of my head. Just as a couple of highlights, so you can knock the white out in no time at all. Blues Talisar blue, the yellows whatever the orangey yellow is from contrast paint range from GW. They're just really fun models. I have a bunch of the other models from the same patron to paint up, including the kind of Queen, the robot, and 5 or 6 of the kind of cosmic guardians of the galaxy, whatever they're supposed to be, retro ray gun pulpy things. They're cool. They're really, really nicely sculpted. There's loads of I was actually surprised. The level of detail is really, really fine. They come in multi-parts, so you can stick them together however you like, which is a little bit fiddly when the hands are separate from their arms and the hands are only 4 or 5 millimeters long. But there's a bunch of stuff, so I've got half a dozen of them ready and another half a dozen on the printer now, along with some kind of retro ray gun turrets, some objective markers, that sort of stuff. So that'll be coming over the next couple of weeks as well, probably with Perilous Tales again. Just seems to be a kind of fun light rule set, and with the ongoing lockdown, gaming opportunities with buddies is limited, so it's more solo gaming for me. But I've really enjoyed playing Perilous Tales and kind of working through the beta rule set with Mike, and just bouncing ideas and rules queries across the Facebook group, because it's a really good, friendly community there. So if you've not looked at it yet, or you've not checked the game out, have a look at my battle reports. There's 3 of them I think now. There'll be a 4th one this week. I'm going to aim for one every week. And join up on the Facebook group and say hello and see some of the cool stuff that's got going on there. There's some fabulous models, some beautiful terrain. People have got really excited about it, and are pumping out all sorts of exciting stuff. Thanks very much for joining us once again. We'll see you next week.